Hello, and welcome to Connect, the weekly podcast of the California MBA, featuring one-on-one interviews with movers and shakers in the mortgage industry. I'm Susan Milazzo, CEO of the California MBA, and I'm very happy you could join us today. Before I welcome today's guest, I'd like to thank our 2024 President's Council sponsors. And these are companies that provide a tremendous amount of financial support to the California MBA, in large part so that we can continue to be the strong voice for the real estate finance industry before the California State Legislature and our regulators. So please join me in thanking our 2024 President's Council sponsors. And those companies are AmeriHome, Arch MI, CMG Financial, Consolidated Analytics, Funding Shield, Guild Mortgage, and Western Alliance Bank. Thank you all so much for your support this year. We greatly appreciate it. With that, I'd like to welcome today's guests, two of my favorite individuals in the mortgage industry because they're so fun. Michael Snelling, Vice President, and Danny Gemma, Vice President of Hub International. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Yep.
It's a high bar. I said you guys were my, some of my favorites, so I don't play favorites all the time, but you have been very active with us since we first met, and I've always appreciated how much you have contributed to the association. So I'm happy that you could be on Connect with me. So I always kind of like to start out getting a little background on folks. So I know that you don't have a long history in the mortgage industry for sure, but I'd love to hear how Hub, how you came to Hub and how Hub became involved with the California MBA.
Michael, you want to kick it off?
Sure. As Susan mentioned, thank you for that gracious introduction. Michael Snelling, Hub International, located in Northern California, but have been in insurance for about 16 years now and specializing on placing comprehensive insurance solutions for mortgage lenders for going on 11. That been with Hub for just over 5 years of that 11-year time frame.
Yeah, and I came over to Hub a little over 6 years ago. Spent the first part of my career in the operating room in the medical device sector. Finally got tired of always being on call and missing barbecues and sporting events and pick anything that you would like to go to and not able to attend. And came over to Hub and joined up with Michael Snelling, and I've really been enjoying working within the mortgage field. It's just a great group of people.
Excellent. Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about Hub. I know that Hub services are certainly not isolated to the mortgage industry, but it's one of the verticals. So can you give us a little information to our listeners about Hub in general?
Absolutely. So Hub International, to your point, is not just focused on the mortgage field. However, we're the fourth largest insurance brokerage in the world, and the first largest privately held. So out of all those, big alphabet groups, we call them, we're the only one that's not publicly traded at this point. But what makes us a little different is that specialty vertical that you talked about. Michael and I are both experts within the financial sector, focusing on mortgage lenders. We've got construction groups, we've got healthcare groups, you name it. But what's unique is when we deal with our clients or our prospects or anybody that needs help, we put them with specialists. So whether it's the cyber, the work comp, the professional liability, the bonds, employee benefits, 401k, we don't just have a generalist go in and help, right? You want somebody who knows your industry, who knows your field. So Hub really tries to offer that boutique white glove service, if you will, where you're dealing with the same group of people day in and day out that know what it is you need.
Having that one source, that point of contact, I'm sure is really helpful for your lender customers as well.
Yeah, you don't want to have somebody that you gotta say, well, who do we call for this one and who do we call for that one? You want it to be the same name.
Right. Yeah, I always appreciate that when we have a vendor that we work with, the association as well. I know one of the things that we have talked about in the years that I've known you guys is cybersecurity, and of course, it just continues to be top of mind for lenders. It just seems like hackers just keep finding more sophistication in their crimes, and it's just we solve one thing and another thing happens. So what role does Hub play in keeping lenders safe in these circumstances?
Yeah, the role that we kind of really focus on is education. It's a lot of our involvement within the California MBA is, how do we educate our customer population, our industry population, if you will, on what's happening, where are things going, and trying to be in a proactive position as opposed to reactive. And that can come in many different ways. Hub actually hires a lot of, ex-FBI people who work within the white collar cyber division, put them on our risk management team that becomes a free resource to our clients, so that we can talk about what policies and procedures are currently in place and where do they need to go. But then also navigating from our side of the aisle over to the carriers as well too, and making sure that the resources that they provide, our clients know how to use them, so that it's not just all put on the lender. You want to be able to have a team that you can lean on. A question comes up, and that's where we really try to fill ourselves in and get ahead of things as opposed to, finding out after the fact.
Thank you for that. I know one of the issues, I think they're probably paying more attention to it now, but when cybersecurity and kind of the need for this protection really became prevalent over in the last, 5, 6, 7 years, can you share some of the top areas where lenders may think that they're covered and like their policies and procedures, but really they might be falling short? I know that we kind of even kind of address that issue just with our small association, things that, we have interactions and, transactions coming in from lenders all the time, but, we try to focus on that, but we're certainly a smaller organization. So what are some of the areas that lenders should be looking at as far as maybe some weak points?
Yeah, so on that point, there's a couple different aspects I'll touch on briefly. So policies and procedures, there is no template or there is no one document cures all in the event of a cyber breach. So everything must be tailored to the organization. What steps are in place on an individual entity basis in terms of the notification to the carriers, notification to the brokers, regulatory matters. Every state, it seems like now, is getting ready to or has started implementing some type of device of notification, that of a requirement for notification to everybody in that state that is potentially impacted by the breach or the event. So it's really just about diving in and going through on a step-by-step basis. In the event of a cyber breach, what do we do? Here is step 1, here is step 2, here is step 3, and making sure that that document or that plan checks out and with the regulators, with the carriers, with all of the other various parties involved. On the same topic of, not everything is created equal, the insurance policy is a big piece of that too. We like to, as Danny said, go on the educational approach. So a lot of steps or a lot of people, when they involve or engage in an insurance discussion, all they look at are their limits and the premium. That's great, but it's those other 90, 100 pages after that, that is where the nuts and bolts are of what's covered or what's potentially not coverage. So we see things like unnecessarily high retention amounts in an event of a claim, what the first dollar is responsible for the lender or for the named insured. Big in our industry, in terms of California Mortgage Bankers Association, are notification costs within a policy. If you have 100,000 people in your database and you are subject to a breach, the cost of stamps and potential credit monitoring is huge. And will that erode your limits, or is that a separate limit? Also, the first and third party business income waiting periods, time you're down before you are going to be recouped on your net loss business income in the event of a hacking event, some type of breach or bricking, things along those lines, where you can't operate and can't earn revenue when it's more important than it ever has been in the last couple of years. That you just got to make sure that those things are in line and in tune, and going over the policies with a very, very, very fine-tooth comb is where we specialize in, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that we're getting the best possible results out there from the policies and procedures and the actual policies themselves for our clients.
Definitely valuable things to be doing before the hack happens, right? Make sure that you're covered, at least from that perspective.
Yep.
We do talk a lot about, cyber liability. I'd be interested to hear if there's any other issues on the insurance front that are kind of emerging topics.
Yeah, on the insurance side of things, where we're seeing with the way that market conditions and have trended over the last couple of years, there's a lot of acquisitions going on, a lot of buy-sell agreements. So the D&O coverage and what do you have in place in terms of your D&O coverage is huge for that. And are you procuring or having the selling entity buy tail coverage? What does their insurance look like? What does that cost? going to be factored into the purchase agreement or the buy-sell agreement there. That's a huge thing we're seeing. The other thing we're seeing, it's not necessarily new. It's something that's been, we'll call it a situation or a problem in air quotes. It's the uncertainty of what the proper procedures are for notifying your carriers and addressing potential claims. Everybody's under the assumption, well, not everybody, sorry. A lot of people are under the assumption that if I go to my carrier and say, hey, we might have a claim, that all of a sudden their rates and their premiums in the future are going to be impacted, when that's not necessarily the case. It depends on what happens. Is the defense cost? Is there a settlement? Is it going to be below your retention, above your retention, or is it just going to be go away because you're going to be dismissed from the matter? So the communication factor in just understanding what that process is in the event that a matter is served to your organization is huge. So understanding that, and again, just the D&O with all the moves that are going on, are the two biggest other items we're seeing besides cyber.
Good. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. As I'd mentioned at the top of our conversation here, Hub has been a great supporter of the California MBA, and we're very grateful for your membership. And you're doing a special sponsorship at our upcoming Legal Issues and Reg Compliance Conference, which we should give a plug for before we close out today. But I'd love to have you share with our listeners why you choose to support the California MBA.
Yeah, this organization has been absolutely fantastic. From the first big conferences Michael and I attended, first time on property, everybody just wrapped their arms around us. It's really unique, and Susan, we were talking about it earlier. It's that rising tide, raises all ships, right? Everybody seems to be rooting for each other. You don't see people, kind of saying, oh, we can't talk to them or can't talk to them. And what's really great about that is it's allowed us to also not just meet, the lenders out there, but also the different vendors and the different companies that are involved. Because look, at the end of the day, somebody may not be interested in talking about insurance, right? It's pretty boring, but it's important, but it's boring. So they may start talking about something else going on in the industry. And because of the CMBA and all of the people that we met, now we have resources that we can help other people with. We hear about an issue or a problem somebody's got, and it's not something that we can fix, but now we have contacts that we can refer in. Goes without saying too that, we just enjoy being part of an industry that allows us to come in and educate and enhance and do what we do best with not asking for anything in return. So it's been a lot of fun. We look forward to all of the events. We're looking forward to the event we've got coming up here in December, and thank you for letting us be a part of it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So for those of you that are joining us for our annual Legal Issues and Regulatory Compliance Conference, December 9th and 10th in Irvine Marriott, Hub will be hosting our late night happy hour. So it's that fun party after you've gone out to your dinner with clients, you're all coming back to the hotel, and it's a great way for just our conference attendees to regather for one more networking opportunity. So thank you, Hub, for being a part of the conference, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for joining us today. To access any of our past episodes, you can follow us on our YouTube channel. We're also available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. That's it for this week, and we'll see you next time on Connect.